the Qatari influence rising in the Western universities. How is it happening? What is Qatar doing? Is the Qatar is funding Muslim Brotherhood? Of course they are. And there are many university teachers that I have seen who has links with the Muslim Brotherhood. They work in such mysterious ways that you will never understand that they are Muslim Brotherhood. They could act and appear as a human rights organization. They can act and appear as a religious organization, cultural organization, but deep down they'll have a network of Muslim Brotherhood funding. But what I personally think, I do not know if it's real or not, I think that the Qataris, they're funding the leftists because they know leftists of the West are like a problem creating element. You know, leftists, whenever you want to take strong decisions, the leftists are there screaming their lungs out and trying to grow against any decisions. If you are in a war, the leftists will talk that you should lay down your weapons. Leftists are like self hating people. So if you want to destroy a civilization or a country, you can fund the leftists. I think the Qataris are also funding the leftists and they're allying with the Chinese in this. What do you guys think?
Somebody thinks that the Qataris are not funding all the things that Solofleur just mentioned.
I
They're
agree.
funding a lot.
Others are too. Yeah, they're funding a lot of it. I think Russia is also doing stuff. The Chinese doing stuff. Basically, anyone that is anti-West, Venezuela.
No, doesn't appear that way.
They're funding a lot. They are funding a lot, but I don't think it's the Qataris are in a really bizarre place right now politically. Let's just be honest. They were a home base for the Hamas leadership for well over a decade. And then all of a sudden they kicked them out. I think Qatar is trying to find its place in the modern world, and they've realized they can't keep supporting terrorist groups. They've hosted some peace thing between the Colombian government and one of the Colombian cartels. I was just reading about this recently. So I think Qatar is looking for other revenue streams than terrorism now. Whether they're funding politics in that, while they've got a lot of money, I'm sorry, you got guys like Soros, George Soros, and a whole host of other international businessmen with far more money than the Qatari government doing that. So I'm looking at it as they're just trying to find their way to make money internationally.
They've got no money problem. Qatar.
Joseph, one question.
Sure.
I just want to know more about George Soros. You know what does he want really? What is his plan? Because I have seen him being involved a lot in South Asian countries.
Okay, okay. For those of you who don't know much about George Soros, look up the 60 Minutes interview online. That'll give you a good idea. However, Soros is also known in the financial world as the man who broke the British bank. He sold the British pound short, made billions doing that. And there's a lot of us who looking at what he's doing is that he likes to crash economies to make money off of crashing them. So his Open Society Foundation and Tides Foundations, which are pretty much funded by him, and they fund all these other little left-leaning activism is what he sort I always point to that as the fact that the left doesn't really give a crap about housing, food, and such for the homeless because all that money is going to activism to get the government to shell out money, not using that money to actually do it themselves. So personally, from my take on it is he's financing a lot of this so he can get rich by selling the dollar short, selling the name the currency. He's going to try to sell it short to make money.
Yeah. The focus on Soros is because he's Jewish. There's actually, the WF.
He's also pretty filthy.
Yeah. But the focus on him is because he's Jewish, because he's just one of many people playing in this field. and Qatar has a lot more money than Qatar is 500,000 people less, with I think the second largest gas reserves in the world or something. They don't have to worry about money. They spent $100 billion on American universities in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
It's the money they have is insane. Their problem is that they are a tiny peninsula. One side is Iran, the other side is Saudi, and they're trying to keep to that. They're just a lucky tribe. It would be just a fishing port and nothing else. It's thanks to the British that found oil there that they have any money. They didn't do anything for it, nothing. They don't even know how to operate it.
It kind of leads me to the next question that we're talking about all this Qatari funding and all this people who might be funded by Qatar. I mean, Tucker probably pretty much earned the name Tucker Carlson by now. Do you think that what happened yesterday in Bondi Beach will trigger an anti-Islamophobia that we will see rising in the next couple of days?
Islamophobia or anti-Islamophobia?
And everyone will scream Islamophobia, and every time now that a Jew will get off a bus or something like that because he will see a Muslim, now he's going to get sued for Islamophobia. It's a protecting mechanism that I see after every terror attack in
Listen,
Europe.
after one terror attack happens, they will say, "Hey, look, this is not the real Islam. Hey, look, someone tried to stop the attacker. He was a Muslim. This is what Islam teaches us. Islam is peace. Quran says that if you kill a man, you kill the whole humanity." Something like this. This sugar-coated stuff. Whenever there is a small incident of the man stuff, they will scream Islamophobia. But the problem is, deep down, they all hold animosity towards Jews and Israel and Zionism, but they will not show it directly. They will play the victim. They are really professional in this work because they are doing this for the past 30, 40 years. It is part of their culture, the civilization. It's called al-taqiyya. It's very normal.
How do you grab a person by the cojones, pardon my French, and talk about the subject without tippy-toeing around it?
If you want the best thing,
The answer for any accusation is going to be Islamophobia. How do we approach?
you need to find which organization the attackers were involved with. Where did they live? There is a new report that a attacker was living in Lakemba, which is a very Muslim majority, Bangladeshi Lebanese Muslim majority area, which has a lot of illegal Muslim immigrants. If you can find them, if you can catch them, then you can show that, look, there is problem with radical Islam and Muslim separatism in Australia, in Sydney. So then you can enact some strict laws, strict immigrant regulations, strict laws about border, visa, and then you can enact laws like Quebec, where there is no headscarf illegal. There is restriction on various religious outfits. Then you can secularize the area, you know? That's how you do it. You cannot, I mean, you don't need government individuals to talk against Islamism, radical Islamism. You need Christian preachers. You need atheist. You need movies. You need to make these things to show that what the root of the problem is in that ideology, as in that religion. Particular religion is highly problematic and cannot integrate with the West.
What's your draw?
The libertarian part of me goes, I don't think we're going to. There's part of me that says the hitting the religion isn't going to solve the problem. Greg Davis from Jihad Watch pointed out that if Islam was reformed, it would no longer be Islam. The best way that I have found to deal with people who claim, well, you're an Islamophobic, and I'm going, okay, when you're talking 90+% the terror attacks across the globe are Islamic related, be it Al Qaeda. I use a website, which you thank God it exists. I posted it in the group along with a bunch of other ones. It's called The Religion of Peace. And it has pretty much every argument that you will normally hear, be it from Muslims here in the West or those supporting them or leftists supporting them. And it is That's one of my personal favorites because the Myths of Muhammad is just a fun one to read. But the way we fight back is we can't, this is the libertarian part of me. We can't initiate force or threaten the initiation force to make it happen. The way you make it happen is you shine light on it. You keep telling the truth regardless of what others say. The less every leftist argument, and even to be honest about it, some of the pro-Islamic types all comes down to every single one of their arguments will always boil down to two words, and that's shut up. It's not that they can't argue against you. Well, I should say they can't argue against you because everything that you're saying is true. And that's where we have to be, to be that brutally honest. I'm not out to spare somebody's feelings. If I say, like when I pointed out, over 90% of all terror attacks around the world are from Islamic terrorist groups, be it Boko Haram, Al Qaeda, Hamas, Hezbollah.
Same lady, different dress.
No. They have differences in ideology too.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you.
Fact.
But to the Western who experience this, they're pretty much. He doesn't know. I understand that there's also conflict between Shias and Sunnis.
I have been with these people,
No, I understand exactly what you're saying, but the point is that the core ideology for all of them is still Islam. It doesn't matter
Exactly.
if it's not that they're Sunni or Shia, it's Islam. This is how I'm Catholic. Trust me, there's probably some here are Protestants. We differ on certain details, but our core ideology is exactly the same. Where we differ is how things are run. And it's the same issue with Islam. The core ideology, be it Sunni, Shia, and then there's the weird Muslim mystics.
Ibadi, Sufi, Wahhabi,
Yeah,
Deobandi.
for every single one of them, it's still the Quran, it's still the core. Where I think the most effective and where I've had the most success has been going after the core beliefs. They all share similar core beliefs, and to a certain degree, their schools of fiqh. I think that's pronounced. I may be pronouncing that right. It's their Islamic jurisprudence. It's still pretty much all the same across the board. Where they differ is kind of like which knee do you bow on? It's that level. It's little details. The devil is in the details, but the cores across the board are all the same.
I
I would
agree.
answer something else. Yeah. If you point out 90% or whatever of terrorist attacks are by Muslims, and someone calls you an Islamophobe, I like to turn the tables. I would say to them, you're the Islamophobe because you cannot separate between crazy Islamic jihadists and the rest of Muslims who are not doing these terrorist attacks. So you are the Islamophobe. They actually are killing Muslims.
95% victim of Islamic extremism are Muslims
So
throughout the
they're being racist against them twice. Once by assuming that all Muslims think the same, and second time by allowing Muslims to be victims of crazy Muslims and not saying anything about it. So that's what I would turn the table on them. No, you are at fault. Let's separate between the two. A Muslim that goes to work, pays their taxes, doesn't bother anyone. It's none of my concern. I'm a libertarian, like you said. You're a libertarian. You don't care. Just let live and let live, and then everybody's happy.
It's actually gold. It's good. All right, Flair.
There are many good Muslims, trust me, many good people, many secular liberal good people.
Of course.
It is true.
Two friends in Israel, Muslim. I totally trust them. Good people, work hard, no problem at all.
Many radical people, especially when they go to the West, many Muslims, especially for South Asian countries, they cannot integrate properly. As they cannot integrate, they ghettoize themselves, they distance themselves, they start living inside the internet, they get radicalized. and then they do these terror attacks.
I want to push back a little bit on what you say, if it's okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Because, for example, I know that some of the problem with assimilation in European countries is that it's not that they have so many options. They go to their Muslim schools, get Islamic education. They go back home. They don't watch the regular TV that the rest of the European watch because they have a satellite dish, so they can catch streams from Arab countries or their old countries that they ran from.
Many Muslims that I personally know, liberal, secular Muslims, watch English content. They are good in English. They will integrate easily. But the poorer ones, the uneducated ones, those who are blue collar job workers, I'm not discriminating against them, but they simply not tend to integrate properly. They tend to love their own country. You see, that is the main issue here. They love their own country and they start hating the country that they live in because it is different in culture. And they perceive the West to be aggressor against the Muslim civilization. That, hey, look, years ago, we Muslims had a caliphate. Now America has base in Gulf states. And who is America's ally? America's ally is the Israelis, the Australians, the New Zealand. Now attack them, destroy them. That is what they think. The radical Islamists, not all of them. So it's very tough. You need to have surveillance of social media. You need to check the televisions. You need to stop homeschools and Islamic madrasas schools. You need to
What
stop them. Madrasas are mostly in South Asia.
do you think the authorities should plant undercover agent in the mosque?
Yes, I do think undercover agents with recorders as camera should be in mosques, and there should be like state sanctioned imams. What they say should be recorded. But still, many of them will watch internet contents which are radical Islamists, and there are so many contents in different languages. For example, imagine a person come from India, a Muslim. He is from India. There will be Hindi Al Qaeda content. Al Qaeda content translated in Hindi. It's available in social media. Nobody monitors them. And the individuals who speak Hindi, they do not delete it. They let it stay because the villains, they're inside and they get fundings from global Islamic, pan-Islamic organizations. It's a huge network. Those who have worked with the Muslim Brotherhood will know. It's like a very strong network,
Can you
stronger than the West.
can you elaborate into what is the reason? Why do you think that the authorities should actually put undercover agents in mosques?
Because let me tell you, the mosques in Friday they have khutbas. Okay, I don't know about Australia, but in many Muslim neighborhoods, if the mosques are small gatherings, not small mosques only, small gatherings, they do small gatherings and they talk about jihad, they talk about the khilafah, they talk about how Sharia can be established, and they tend to stay away. You will see a lot of Muslims, they only wear the hijab when they come to the West. But after they stay in the West, they start wearing the niqab. They want to be more conservative. A lot of them immigrate the West with the sole goal that you will make a family and you will establish Islam. You can be the soldier for Islam and you will go heaven easy way. You will not fight. You will take children. You will work. You will take over the institutions. There are many of them. There are many. If I can come to a developed country, then I can help more.
Stop letting them in to begin with. That's just the bottom line already, and we can't even do it. So why the fuck are we letting any more in? Doesn't make any sense. You need to close the gates.
Okay, I tend to agree with the thought of Leo. I told you already that there's this report that Tzvi Kelly, which done a hell of a work about more than a decade ago in mosques in Europe. He got undercover there. He speaks fluent Arabic, and he talked to them. I mean, what these guys are saying is pretty nuts. It's pretty insane and intense. How the rest of you guys feel about it in your country, whether it's America or whatever? Do you think that this is a job fit for an undercover agency?
Yes,
Maybe
yes.
he just re-released it in HD on YouTube because
See?
until now there was really bad copy. Now he redone it. It's on YouTube. It's really
Is it
good. Look it
translated?
up.
Is it
It's really
translated?
Kelly.
Mossad, is it
Yes,
translated?
I think so. I think it's got subtitles as well. I'm
Can you
pretty sure. Hold on. I'll look.
look for
try
a
to
link?
find it.
Put it in the chat. Thank
Try
you.
to find it for you guys.
Thank you. Joseph?
This is where the libertarian in me really draws back in horror, because you can't, and I'm thinking of Sun Tzu's adage of know your enemy as you know yourself and victory will be yours. But the understanding your enemy doesn't mean becoming your enemy. And to be honest about it, the only way I think the West can win against Islam is to do the same thing we did last time. Technologically, well, if you take a look at the history, basically, for lack of a better term, the history of Jihad, starting from around 635, which is just after Muhammad died, to the final defeat of the Islamic Caliphate in 1638 at the Battle of Vienna by King John of Poland and the Catholic forces there. It's basically, they got kicked out. And I don't agree with doing it that way, but I understand the reasons why it happened. I'm enough of a student of history to understand it. But I think today, because of the way we have, basically, at least here in the United States, we have full freedom of speech. That is not something that exists in anywhere, I think, other than now Argentina, because of what Malay has been doing. But it's our freedom of speech that makes it hard for Islamics to even really gain any type of ground. Sure, they're gaining ground in our colleges and everything because they've aligned with the leftists. I'm going to use Charlie Kirk's death. Started showing when people really started after the unhingedness that happened just after Charlie Kirk's death. A lot of people started looking at the left in a totally different light and going, "This is how people see us." And they started reevaluating. For me, the whole thing boils down to the only way we need to keep that freedom of speech. We don't need, I would say, do we need to send undercovers to some of the mosques? Hell yeah. I would actually agree with that for no other reason that if a little warning helps, but freedom of speech also allows you to know what direction the enemy's coming from. I don't believe in censorship for those reasons, because a stupid idea should be given literally full growth in sunlight, because the sunlight's going to kill it, because they become subject to ridicule. They become subject to criticism. Islam's only defense, based off of what I've read, is shut up. You can't criticize the prophet. You can't criticize the Quran. You can't, it's a series of, you don't do this because it's blasphemy. Sorry, I'm Catholic.
You're totally
not-
right.
I do
And
not
the
believe
way-
in free speech like Americans.
Listen, free speech has a good thing. What Joseph said, if you have free speech, then the radicals, they will talk all sort of bad things, and you'll just record it, you'll distribute it, people will know that, look, there are people who want to destroy us, there are people who have such disgusting mentality, let's cancel them.
Ridicule them.
Exactly.
We ridicule them.
But also see them for what they are. Because if you consider you got a bunch of people in your midst who want to destroy your culture in the name of Islam, you can say, well, guess what, motherfucker? We ain't going to let any more of you in. And if you keep this up, we might come after you too. So you better watch out, because the tide is turning. People are getting real pissed off.
Yeah, this process is not working because the internet is global. The numbers can be influenced by outside agents, by bot farms. You cannot trust the system. I don't think free speech always works. If we had free speech,
What's that?
then nobody will hear the Jews because we're just a small minority.
Can't work. It can work here in America in the sense that we don't have the restrictions that say Britain does or Germany does. Because if you speak up against Islam over there, you'll get arrested. You'll get thrown in jail. Over here, we still And that was the Muslims in a much better position than Europe. We still use our freedoms to our own advantage to fight the Islamic infection here. So to that extent, free speech can be very beneficial here in America. Over there, it's much different. The Muslims can say whatever they want, but the natives have to shut the fuck up because you know Islam Marxist telling them to.
It doesn't work in a global situation where you are a minority.
If you do not give people freedom of speech, they will just leave your country, or they will use alternate means, they will use encrypted channels to communicate, which will make it much harder for your law enforcement to catch them. This happens. So let freedom of speech say, but let's also ridicule the ideology. Let's counter the ideology. And as I am here talking with you guys, in my country, there is no freedom of speech. I'm taking a big risk. So let freedom of speech stay, but ridicule and counter the ideologies that are disgusting.